Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast. It's a sunny day. I'm excited. It's a new week on November 28th, 2022. I'm excited because I have 10 live trainings lined up for the week. My team and I have really tried to look at what we can be talking about as we come through the end of the year here, the calendar year. And so we're trying to plan out 2 weeks at a time at least going forward, give you a lot of good training going into maybe preparation for next year. So if you haven't done this, by the way, go take a look at, you can find it in many different ways, right? If you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter or the GovCon Chambers LinkedIn newsletter, if you visit my profile, you can see right on the homepage of my profile where there's a featured section. It'll show you this newsletter article that says 180 trainings. And if you go in there, you'll see the 10 that are coming up. So November 28th through, I think it's like December 9th. So not this Friday, but next Friday. Got 4 of them or 10 trainings lined up, and I hope you can attend as many as possible, but certainly go look at them so you can see the titles and a little bit of description of what I'm going to be training, and choose the ones that you want to join us for. So I'm excited about that. I think I'm good to go. I always kind of wait for a split second just to see that LinkedIn has caught up with me. Let me turn my caption off so that doesn't run the whole time. And I think I'm ready to go. If you do not know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live federal sales training, where I teach processes and procedures for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Before we get started, do me a favor in the chat, help buyers remember who you are. Put your company name, put your core competency, 2 or 3 words that just let them know what you sell, products, services, etc. And then make sure you're growing your network by engaging with others in the community. This is your community that we're helping create for you, and we facilitate it, but it's your community. And the people within the chat are the same people within your room, let's say if we were at a conference or something. Finally, I wanted to say thank you to our sustaining members. The GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining members are the ones who make all this possible. And so we just wanted to say thank you. We are 100% funded by sustaining members, not the government. And I occasionally like to remind ourselves of that. Most importantly, we're not federal funded, but biggest thing is to just say thank you to the sustaining members. So let's go ahead and get started with today's training. We're going to be diving into a great topic today, and it's going to be related to a lot of other topics I'll be teaching on in the next 2 weeks. But today's topic that we're going to discuss is why branding is holding you back in the federal market. And maybe I should have actually titled this a little differently: why branding done wrong is holding you back. It's pretty funny when you try to make trainings or titles for trainings. I have to work really hard because it's like 5 to 8 words or something that you may see that attract you into this training. And so I'm trying to find the right ones. But I do believe that this focus on branding is holding us back in the federal market from achieving some of our goals. And that's what I want to talk about today, right? If you're like some of the people I sometimes talk to about their marketing and branding sales efforts holistically, you've spent a lot of time or money on branding, but you're still not feeling like you're visible to the federal buyers. I always talk about visibility or invisibility to the federal buyers. And if you're invisible to the federal buyers, then it means perhaps you're not winning as many contracts as you want. And we don't want that, right? So today I'm going to be talking about building strategic relationships and being seen as a subject matter expert, and how that will help you win contracts, right? And so thinking about your visibility to the government, less about branding and more about getting out there and actually doing it. So today I'm going to cover 3 points, just give you a quick heads up on what I'll be talking about. The first thing is I want to share some branding truths with you in the federal market. The federal market's different than the commercial market, so let's just acknowledge that and talk about it. And then I want you to be thinking that I want you to think more about visibility than branding. And then the third one is thinking relationships, not branding, right? Branding, we're going to talk about this in a second, is this kind of big activity, but relationships really come down to a person. And that's what I want you to track on. So today we're going to be talking about, right, how do you put things in place that help you win contracts, not keep you invisible? And if that's something you want to learn today and you're excited to learn this today, do me a favor in the chat, just put win contracts. So I know you're along for the ride and looking forward to hearing what I have to share. Okay, so let's begin with a little bit of truth about branding in the federal market, right? So here's some truths about branding in the federal market that I want to share. They're not in any particular order. They're just observations of 20 plus years of experience in here. And before I go too much further, though, in telling you what I think about branding, what do you think about when I say branding, right? What does branding mean to you? Just think about that. You can put it in the chat if you want, but think about what does branding mean actually to you and your company? Is it advertising, right? Is it putting ads out on LinkedIn or Google or Facebook or wherever, or even print ads? Or, I know a company once put up a billboard, right? Is it advertising? Is it search engine optimization or SEO for your website? Is that branding to you? How about, graphic design perfection? This is one of my favorite ones about branding sometimes being this race to get awards for doing great graphic design or something. And so is it graphic design perfection? Is that branding for you? Is it personas? Is it all about the people? You're trying to really think about who's our persona. And I don't believe in personas in the federal space because there's so many decision makers and so many users that we're selling to. Personas tend to be more about, when you're selling a course, like I might have a course and I'm selling it. I might target a small business owner, right? That might be a persona. But in the federal market, when you're going after $1 million deals, you begin to get away from personas and you're more targeting the agency. And we'll talk more about that as we go forward. But I've seen some examples of where I think people have gotten a little too focused on this word branding, especially as it relates within the federal space. And I wanted to share these because these are what motivated me to want to choose this topic today, about talking about how branding holds you back in the federal market. I've seen this over and over again in companies in little bitty shifts, little bitty. I don't know if that's a real word and a professional word, but anyways, you get my point. But a small change they could have made to their efforts might have took them in the right direction. But I knew of a company that had several people in their marketing department, and I'm talking about a small business, right? Under 50 million, under 40 million, but had 5 or 6 people in the marketing department, had a senior VP. So one of the leaders in there. The challenge was the marketing department, though, when they start forming like that, they begin to see themselves as a true marketing department, and the federal space doesn't really use marketing departments in that same way. And this will be fun to see if people comment. You don't have to, because I'm not getting into a dialogue around it. But this idea of having a marketing department begins to make people see marketing the way Coca-Cola sees marketing, right? Sees branding. We've got a brand. We've got to bring in these outside organizations, whatever. And so, starting to have these folks in there. And then when you have a senior leader who's in the federal space, who's in marketing, they begin not to understand who your customer is or how they buy. And so that's a challenge for me. Really, I would just say that I tend to look at your business developers and your capture people as the ones who should know more than anybody else on what your buyers want to see, how you can reach those buyers. And so we'll talk more about that. I also know of many companies that are spending thousands, but I know of one company spending tens of thousands on their website, right? Creating this fancy award-winning website, but the customer doesn't know about it, or worse, this company doesn't even really know many people at the customer site. And that's a big deal, right? You're spending all this money and time on a website. If I build it, they will come, but no one's coming because no one knows you. And that is those are a couple of examples that I've seen where people's focus on branding is holding them back from success in the federal market. They're not doing more of the things that I think they should do. Going with that whole idea of branding, I see it as some people getting caught up in this advertising or SEO run, and it's a competition. Well, when you're tracking views and likes, when you're tracking these kind of metrics, it's a competition you're going to lose in the federal space because that's not who our customers want. And so what happens is we tend to see all these vanity metrics as measurements of success, but they're not actually moving us towards our customer. They're not actually moving us towards sales. I've seen companies, like I said, invest a lot in SEO. And when they do, they tend to get a lot of views, a lot of likes that are not focused on, but coming from people who aren't who they want to reach, right? And that's not a good plan for anybody. In the federal space, federal buyers basically don't visit your website. And this is something I've been saying for a couple of years that I feel is a loaded statement because people in the marketing world will come back and say, yes, they do. But the reality is, if you actually talk to your buyers and ask them, how do you learn about new companies? If we have an expertise and we put it out there, how are you learning about it? And and you can ask yourself this just by thinking about how do you learn about activities? Do you go visit a website, or are you getting engaged in certain ways? And so on the federal buyer side, they're not coming to your website. They're not one of these millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people who might be hitting your website every year, every month. These clickback type links that we create or marketing departments create for us, none of that really plays in the federal space. In the federal space, it's about relationships, right? If 1 million people see you, but they're the wrong people, then how's that going to help you get a sale? There's so many people out there in the industry, in our industry, who teach variations of what I teach. And we all kind of keep coming back to the same thing. Success in the government contracting world tends to be a lot built on relationships, right? Relationships are not built by scattershotting your company's flyers everywhere. It's really about going somewhere. And I've been guilty of spamming in the sense of doing a little bit of bulk emailing, but that's not the way for me to reach you, right? That's the way for me to just throw it out there and hope somebody comes back. But if I'm trying to reach you, I need to contact you. And that doesn't happen through the website. That happens through relationships and other activities. And I'll talk about that in a second. So the last thing I want to talk about from a branding truth is that, in my opinion, on the federal space, our thinking about branding should stop with consistency of the 6 marketing assets. So in the federal space, there's 6 marketing assets, right? There's your DSBS profile, there's your capability statement, your briefing deck, your LinkedIn profile, your website, your LinkedIn company page. These 6 marketing assets are all you need to be able to get in the door and make a sale. Because the reality is, sales don't happen through marketing. They happen through a well-written proposal that Capture has made sure is a winning proposal, right? They happen at the proposal. You have to submit a proposal. That's where the win happens. The win does not happen in marketing. And so the marketing assets in the federal market space are designed to just get a meeting, just to get in the door, have a meeting, hear about their challenges, hear about their goals, begin to weave in your thoughts for a product or solution that could meet their needs, right, into those conversations so you can hear from them. Are they getting excited about what you're talking about as a solution or a product? Are they saying, nah, we're looking over here? But those conversations, it's solution selling. It's selling in the federal space. That's Capture. That helps you lead to a great proposal. And so when you think about branding, if you use that word, and that's why I said, maybe the better word title is branding done wrong. But if you think about branding in the federal space, it really just needs to be consistency of those 6 marketing assets. So when they look at one, they see you across all 6, right? So if I look at your LinkedIn profile, or if I looked at your website, or if I looked at your capability statement, all 3 of those would say the same thing. Here's my core competency. Here's who we've done this business with. Here's the differentiator. Some basic things that are more than enough to get you in the door. Okay, so if you're tracking on what I'm saying there, if you understand that branding really should just be focused on consistency around the 6 marketing assets, and that you must have these 6 marketing assets, do me a favor, in the chat, put 6 assets. And while you do that, I'm going to drink some water and remind you that I am going to come back and look at all the chats and engage. But while I'm talking, sometimes I get overly focused on the training and the message, and I don't let myself get overly distracted by the chat yet, but I'll come back to it. Okay, so 6 assets in the chat. Let me move to my second point, and I want you to think visibility, not branding, right? Again, I asked you about what do you think branding is, and branding is maybe this marketing thing, whatever we want, but it's more like, in my opinion, right? My way of stating it is that branding is I'm hoping to get this massive visibility, the same way Coca-Cola or Lockheed would, or Boeing would want visibility type thing, right? Or United Airlines. That's branding. Fly our airlines, not the other one, because we're the first ones you think of. But in the government contracting space, I want you to think visibility, not branding. Branding puts you everywhere, but you're seen by nobody. So if you talk about visibility, now we're talking about being seen by the buyer, the people you want to be seen. So that's really important, right? Branding, in my opinion, puts you everywhere, but you're seen by nobody. Most importantly, you rarely know who you're seen by, if anybody at all, right? But when you sit there and focus on visibility, you're going to be right where your target buyers are. And so if your buyers are not coming to your website like I suggest, right, where are they going? Well, they're going to the dynamic small business search. Come on, tell me who knew I was going to say DSBS is the first thing, right? The dynamic small business search, absent all other tools, is the number one market research tool that the federal buyers use. Excuse me. It's an extension of SAM and DSBS. They make up your small business profile. You want to be visible in this tool. The second place you want to be in this tool. And by the way, when I say visible, I don't just be registered. There's so many of us who are not registered correctly. And so we're virtually invisible to the buyer. We don't have keywords so they can find us. When they come in, they don't see any narratives that tell them about our company, right? And so we want to make sure we're visible. If any of you have great DSBS profiles and you'd be willing for people to go check them out, put your company name into the chat and have people go look at your profile. But DSBS is the number one market research tool. It's also used as a data source to other data repositories. For example, the second bullet I was going to talk about is portals that prime contractors use. So prime contractors like Lockheed Martin or Booz Allen, for example, when you register as a supplier, sometimes they reach back to SAM and DSBS and pull all that data forward. When they do, now it's in their repository. And so this visibility stretches from DSBS into the supplier portals that large primes have. Agencies also have portals, right? We talk about branding out there, trying to just throw it out and hope somebody sees us. But if you want to sell to HHS, are you in HHS? HHS has its own supplier portal. And if you're familiar with the HubZone program, in the federal government, there's about 5,000 HubZone companies. But if you go to HHS's supplier portal, less than 1,000, I think it's closer to like 500 HubZone companies are in HHS. That means theoretically 4,000 or 4,500 HubZone firms are invisible to those HHS buyers. Why do branding when you can just go put yourself right into their portal where they're looking, where people who are in the know are encouraging potential buyers and market researchers to look? You know, so HHS tells their people, look at our agency portal, then go to DSBS. None of them are saying, hey, go check out websites of 1,000 companies, right? They can't scale at that level. The other place, a couple of other visibility places, and I want to move pretty fast on these ones, are events, right? You want to be at events and visible at a conference or matchmaking or industry events. You just want to be in there and be visible. So an example is industry days. If you attend an industry day, often they have an attendee list. If your name is on that attendee list because you registered, you're now visible to the buyer. Obviously, they might pass that around to all potential market researchers within their agency. And then there's a whole bunch of us who are in the industry side, small and large businesses, who look at the attendee list and see who's been there and maybe reach out. That's visibility, right? Think about visibility specifically. I'm trying to reach this agency, buyers or teammates, and actually maybe even on this opportunity. Branding is everywhere, but you're seen by nobody. In industry day, you're seen by the people who want to focus on this opportunity, both the buyer and teammates. And then another one is they're on LinkedIn, right? This is a huge deal. Visibility is being part of the discussion. In LinkedIn, not only can you find people's profiles, but you can get in and get engaged with them on discussions. There's people who post on my chat right here while we're talking, right? You can engage with them and now you're visible to them. There's right now, I'm interacting it seems like multiple times a week, but at least once a week with people from US Cyber Command. That's huge because whatever I can do at US Cyber Command and the things I can understand about challenges and goals and all this kind of stuff, I can then chase it downstream into the Army, Navy, and Air Force, into their cyber commands and into the lower commands because I'm having dialogue up here. I'm visible. I'm being part of the discussion. And I'm not selling, by the way. I'm having conversations, let's say, about cyber. And it's something you want to be doing, right? Is to be engaged on LinkedIn so that you can begin to be part of that any of the discussions that are happening. That makes you visible. So if you understand that, and do me a favor, actually, if you're open to connections right here on LinkedIn, or if you're on YouTube watching this, put in the chat, open to connections. Let people know you're open to connecting. So open to connections, open to connecting. Last one I want to say is last thing I wanted to say on this is, now that you know that these are these places you need to be visible, right? DSBS, the portals, at events or on LinkedIn, go do it. Optimize these assets, these channels for being visible. Instead of some random branding type exercise, go specifically into the federal government's world, these channels that reach your buyers and your teammates. And by the way, as you do it, go ahead and get your buyers' feedback on the visibility, right? If you're reaching into HHS and you're going to register, well, then reach out to people and say, hey, I just registered. Can you just let me know, are the narratives I put in good enough for you, right? I have a whole nother training on that, but basically ask for their help and their feedback. Now you're starting to become visible to them. You're building a relationship even, which is going to lead us to the next topic. Last thing I just want to say is, government contracting is not about winning marketing awards, right? It's about getting meetings with the right people. I don't ever want you to get an award for your capability statement. Your website, I don't ever want somebody to come in and say, hey, your website looks great. What you want is for people to invite you into their office to have meetings, teammates so that you can be on their team, buyers so that you can start talking to them about their agency needs and identify opportunities, or buyers so you can talk about a specific opportunity. In the federal market, we want to get in the door and have meetings. That's what we should be thinking about, not thinking about marketing awards, branding awards, et cetera. So if you understand all this that I'm talking about, think visibility, not branding. Do me a favor in the chat, put be visible. And I'm going to move on to the last topic. As you're putting be visible into the chat, I want to talk about think relationships, not branding. So first I said think visibility, not branding. Now think relationships, not branding. You're getting seen, right? Let's start building some of the relationships. I want you to think about people, right? When we think about branding, we're trying to reach thousands and tens of thousands or millions of people out there. That's the whole idea, is kind of this scattershot approach of thinking about people. But in the federal market, we really want to think about people one at a time, right? The less people, the better. There's this thought in marketing that we talk about. It's better to have 100 raving fans than 1 million followers. So if you think about YouTube or LinkedIn followers or whatever, it's better to have 100 raving fans than 1 million followers. Well, I would say in the federal space, at your agency of choice, it's better to have one raving fan than to have 1 million hits on your website, right? It's better to have one raving fan within Booz Allen, if that's where you're trying to go, large prime, right? One raving fan will lead to success within the agency of your choice, within the teaming partner of your choice, right? So if you understand that, this idea that you want to have one raving fan more than 10,000 people who just really don't know you, right? Put one raving fan in there. Let me know that you're coming into social media world and speaking the social media language by saying one raving fan. Understand that a raving fan is somebody who's going to sit there and help you succeed and achieve success within an agency. So branding is this, I describe it as a constructive procrastination. I don't want to say branding is bad. Actually, again, going back to the way I might retitle this, branding done wrong. How branding is done in the federal government is different than how it's done outside the federal government. And in the federal government, the way it's traditionally called branding, I would say branding is this constructive procrastination. Yes, it could be valuable, it could be helpful, but you're procrastinating on 3 other major things that I think you should be doing. So one of the things that you should be doing is building relationships, right? With the right people, those raving fans. Building relationships with the right people. The second thing you should be doing is networking more. Networking means basically you're doing things that will begin to help you find those relationships. And the third one is responding to 2 RFIs a month. So let me expand on these 3 thoughts really quick. Building relationships with the right people. Think about in the government buyer world, right? That's contracting officers, that's small business professionals, both the small business specialists as well as the PCRs, the procurement center representatives at the SBA, who do oversight over agencies and can make introductions. I had a customer reach back to me last week and say that they reached out to the PCR, and the PCR was able to give them introductions and names into all sorts of small businesses that were in their area down in North Carolina. And that was awesome because it now pushed it forward. And now they can say, hey, Janie gave me your name and number. I'm reaching out, right? And so reach out to these small business professionals. And then obviously program office professionals within an agency. On the outside, you want to be looking at small business and large business government contractors, right? Building relationships with these people is really important in identifying each one that you should be doing. Somewhere down the line, I talk about, this idea of how many relationships should you have. Go watch this training I have about how many strategic relationships should I have. And when you look at that, you'll see me lay out who you should be building a relationship with. And it's not, it's less than 20, right? So think about 20 raving fans. One thing I wanted to caution you on is I talk to people sometimes and I hear this, I already tried that. I talk about reach out to the small business specialist, the contracting officer, or a teammate, whatever. And I hear, I already tried that, right? I talk to, I hear people say that PTAC told me to do something. I tried that, didn't work. Mark told me to do something. I tried that, didn't work. Anna told me to do something. I tried that, it didn't work. I want you to get that out of your head, right? If something didn't work, either you did it wrong or you didn't do enough of it, right? So either you didn't do it right or you didn't do it enough. And if you didn't do it right, keep watching my training. I'm trying to teach you how to do it right. And if you didn't do it enough, that's on you. Go pick up the phone and reach out again some more. But the reality is you can achieve success through relationships with these people I'm talking about. Sometimes it might be a little difficult to get started, but imagine how sweet it is when you actually do have those relationships in place, right? Networking. I want you to focus on networking rather than branding, right? When I say think relationships, not branding, go somewhere to specifically talk to people one-on-one. When you do branding, when you think branding, it's this mass thing. I don't know who's going to receive my message, right? I'm going to throw it off the building and hope somebody calls me back. But when you go to a networking event, it could be local, it could be in person, it could be virtual. This event right here could be your networking event, right? Talk with people one-on-one. Look in the chat, see what people are saying that they do. Reach out to them. Begin to get used to building those relationships, and reach out to the people in particular on this training. Reach out and say, hey, we were on the same training. It looks like we're in the same business. Can we have an intro call? I have so many people who tell me they have had built tens and tens and tens of new relationships just from this chat alone. Imagine if you start getting good at that at more networking events. The last thing is responding to two RFIs, and I'm going to go pretty quick because my time's going a little tight. But responding to 2 RFIs a month, these must be in your sweet spot, right? They're not random RFIs. But when you respond to an RFI, you're shifting left in the sales process. And if you haven't seen my 7-step sales process, basically you're going away from the RFP and getting to this RFI where the government is really talking about the requirements still, or maybe they're still talking about the acquisition approach. That's shifting left. By the time you get to the RFP, the decisions are made. And so you want to shift left. And by shifting left, you're increasing your visibility because not many of your competitors are shifting left with you. Second thing to keep in mind about responding to RFIs each month is that I have this little line I wrote here. It says, you have the right to win if you write to win. You have the right to win if you write to win, meaning put everything you can into that RFI. Be the subject matter expert. Demonstrate you're the subject matter expert, right? It's the surest path to people knowing you in the federal buyer world. People buy from those they know, like, and trust. If you write to win as a subject matter expert, they will know you because they will get a whole bunch of responses that are just a capability statement. They're not going to get a lot of responses that are writing to win. You have a chance to rise up above. I heard people describe constantly RFPs. The proposals that come in are like 2 or 3 proposals. Well, if the government can't get people to propose or bid on an opportunity, how likely do you think that they're getting a bunch of responses to RFIs? And so right to win in there, and you'll have a right to win. If you understand what I'm talking about, doing these things before branding, building relationships, networking, writing RFIs, if you understand that they come before, this big branding push, do me a favor, put first things first into the chat. It'd be a great thing for me to kind of wrap up as we go forward. So we talked about 3 things here, and I just want to remind you and give you one tip to go forward, or one action item for you to do going forward. So the 3 things we talked about today were branding as a marketing strategy hurts you in the government contracting world. Second thing is focus on visibility over branding. And the third thing is value relationships over branding. And my tip for you is to start one new relationship today. It could begin with somebody you found in chat. It could be you look at an agency and say, you know what, let me reach out to somebody in the agency and start that relationship today. Hey, if you'd like to work with my team and me, we have a Business Development Accelerator Workshop. We'd love to have you join us if you're a company that's at the right stage. So if that's you, if you're interested, send me a message in LinkedIn to learn more. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It is just a process. I'll see you in the next training.